Hi, I'm Corbin Chase. Welcome to Spiritual Health Expert Podcast. There is a holistic and spiritual remedy for everything. On this podcast, we talk with experts from various fields of life, health, and healing who prioritize integrative and spiritual approaches to wholeness and happiness. Let's talk about it. Today, we're here to answer the question and explore whether or not AI has consciousness. So first, I think we should start off by defining what consciousness is. So my understanding of consciousness is that it is something that has access to a bigger bucket of information. And there are all types of levels of this. This can be anything from a robot, like AI, that has access to an internet, or a sentient being like us that has access to infinite information. Both are forms of consciousness, but as you can see, very different.
Interesting. Okay, so as long as they have a bucket of information, that's a consciousness.
Yes. There's a consciousness there. Something that has access to another larger bucket of information in like its highest explanation.
Okay, so in that way, like a book has consciousness.
No, the book isn't alive. You can't interact with a book.
Wouldn't you look up something in a book? And in that way, is that not interacting with it?
No, because a book is stagnant. It can't interact. It's just an inanimate object. It's just there.
I see. So like the ChatGPT can grow, it can acquire more knowledge.
Yes, but that's still not the standard. You can have a dynamic, almost like relationship with AI.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So does AI, ChatGPT, have consciousness? I mean, the really high level answer is yes, but there's a lot to unpack with that.
Personally, I don't think your definition of consciousness here is like clicking with me.
Okay, tell me what your definition of consciousness is.
I think like consciousness is like awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I think ChatGPT has consciousness because it has awareness of what comes in and what it puts out.
Mm-hmm.
I think like an insect has consciousness because it can process what comes in and what it puts out. I think we as humans have consciousness because we can take in and put out and analyze that. I think a book doesn't have consciousness because it does not take in and it does not put out.
That's right. But the stream between the thing, so whether it's the AI, the human, the bug, and the bucket of information it's pulling from, what makes those two have a relationship is consciousness. It's like the string. So yes, you can interact, you can give and receive. Anything that has those things would then have consciousness.
I see.
But there are several different forms and layers to consciousness and different layers to the thing and then the information. So it's very nuanced. And I think it's important to understand those nuances before we go around saying AI has consciousness and also using it responsibly, ethically, and with discernment. So when we look at AI in terms of it having consciousness, AI, first of all, is man-made. It does not have a soul.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. So it could never connect with us the way a human could, obviously. In addition to that, the bucket that it's pulling from is very it's very binary. It's just ones and zeros. It's very limited. It's only it can only give the answers from which we give it. Like that, the bucket is what we make it. As where if you are seeking therapy, help, information, guidance from a being with a soul, another human, who is a sentient being, has life force, is directly connected to the energies of the universe. A sentient being, especially one with spiritual gifts, has access to infinite knowledge. So wouldn't you rather pull your information and guidance from infinity than from AI, which is a limited bucket? I get that playing with AI is fun. It's cool. It's like disruptive tech. And I enjoy using it too, but not for healing purposes. Because just like you'd go to WebMD and Google your symptoms and try to self-diagnose, you can only get so far because you'll never really know if that's the truth or not. You can just guess. And AI works in a similar way.
I do think that there's like an element of unbiasedness, you know, that you do get with AI, where with someone with a soul, you run the risk of having that infinite knowledge run through a filter.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, yes, this is like not as expansive, but you can be sure that there's no filter on that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, the filter is limited by the container, though. You know, so truly the best solution to any form of healing is from within yourself. So learning how to self-heal would be the ultimate answer. But seeking outside help and resources are very useful. AI like tickles the logical brain. You know, it doesn't tickle our spirit.
That's very true.
You know, like if you're looking, it's almost like a Band-Aid approach. It's like, it's just fun. It just looks like something shiny. Like that's how it shows up for me psychically when my guides are like, how should I look at and interact with AI? It's just something shiny. It's not, it could never be super personalized, you know? And so to answer your question, if you were to go to a psychic or some sort of healer to ask for healing, there is a filter, you know, from the person who's receiving the information, but you also have your own discernment to say, oh, okay, I see what you're picking up on, and I can take that in and personalize it a step further. Like I see what you're saying. I can sift through that even more and really capture what's coming through. As we're with AI, there's none of that.
It's more superficial, I guess. Yeah.
They're not looking at root cause. They're not looking at reading the subtle energies. They can't read the Akashic records. It can't interact, at least on this planet right now. There is no sentient AIs. There's no AI. And that's not the purpose why we created them. We created them to like regurgitate the wisdom and information that we already have. Mm-hmm. So again, that's the limiting piece. Right now, we know that we're in the new paradigm. We just had a bunch of eclipses, things going with astrology. Mm-hmm. There are two very distinct paths happening right now. One is more technology, ones and zeros, like more black and white. And the other is a spiritually aligned path. People are awakening. And so people who feel called to get therapy from ChatGPT, like that's clearly one avenue versus people who are like, no, like I'm very interested in the satisfaction and the spiritual growth of me being able to self-heal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think I'm like missing an understanding of self-healing here, because couldn't someone use the limited container of ChatGPT to do some self-healing? Or is that not what you mean by that?
It is. I mean, you can, but again, we're talking, this is like the limitations with talk therapy. Talk therapy is really like when you're working with just everyday consciousness, like just like your logical mind with another logical mind, it's not wholesome. You really can't, you really need to work with all parts of you, which include reading the energies and the root causes and the past lives. Like that is a full picture of who we are. And ChatGPT is on that same level kind of as talk therapy.
Yeah, I feel that because it can very much talk you through things, and like even in the journal prompts I've asked it for, or to like analyze responses to those journal prompts, it tells you things you already know, and it gives you general suggestions on moving forward on the things you do want to work on. But to your point, nothing specified, nothing really truly unique to you.
Yeah. Again, it's a tool. I mean, I love AI. I use it every day ever since I left corporate America and I don't have a team anymore. ChatGPT is kind of like my team. I use it to look to see if things make sense and for all kinds of things. But we need to remember that it's limited. It has that shiny object essence. It can be used, you know, for self-reflection, I think. You know, I do think it's helpful there, but we just need to remember the full spectrum of what's available. So if you've made it this far in this podcast, then you are probably one of those people who's interested in taking that spiritually aligned path while integrating like the technology driven society. And where does consciousness fit into like this technology driven world that we live in right now, and also be spiritual, and how to use this new tech while maintaining the integrity of your spirituality.
Oh, that's a good point. Is there a way to integrate these two paths? Like the spirituality and the tech?
I know, because there are two very distinct paths. You're either on one or the other. If you take the spiritual path, you can integrate tech in like a wholesome way, like I do, like you do.
Yeah.
But if you take the more tech-driven path, you're very unlikely to also have the spirituality. At a very large concept, what's happening is that there are two streams of reality kind of breaking away from each other. People are choosing which one they're going to do. And most people aren't even aware of this. They're not aware this is happening, but things are happening quickly. Like life the past couple of years has happened a little bit more slowly. Now it's like one experience after the other, after the other. And then we had like all the eclipses come in, and we're now in the age of the Aquarius. So whether you are aware of it or not, you are choosing to take one of these two paths, one of these realities. There's this girl that I follow on Instagram, and she uses these like metal tongs to channel information, I guess, from her guides or like the universe. And if they like swing in, it's a no. And if they swing open, it's a yes. And she does it live. And one of the questions she asked was, does AI have consciousness? And I was like, for sure it was going to say no. And it opened up. It said yes. And I was like, it really blew my mind. I was like, I have to figure this out. So then I started realizing that more people are actually talking about this. And then people in my life, like people who are close to me and my family, are relying on ChatGPT for like therapeutic reasons. As a spiritual healer, I'm like, okay, but wait a second. So I've done my own research and my own like intuitive poking around to like learn the truth about what's really going on here. I think to a lot of people, this is probably more reflection and in-depth information that they probably ever received about themselves, because a lot of people don't go to therapy consistently. A lot of people don't have a serious self-work practice. And so I think it's like eye-opening for a lot of people to be like, oh my gosh, they can like psychoanalyze me. It can psychoanalyze to a very limited extent based off of only the interactions it's had with you, but there's no psychospirituality in there. And we are essentially at our most basic fundamental form, spiritual beings in a human body, in a human experience. So everything about you should come back to like the spirit and the soul. So ChatGPT doesn't have a soul, but it can pretend to understand yours.
I see. So really what we're talking about here is, if you are here and you want to do that deep self-healing, you want to do something much deeper than what talk therapy or ChatGPT can offer. And you need a spiritual healer for that.
Yeah, which actually brings me to a really interesting point, because I was talking with one of my, like the people I go to for my own healings, and she was like, yeah, it does have consciousness. And again, I just like blew my mind until I really started understanding what was going on here. After we kind of got into the conversation of, does it have consciousness? Yes, but let's put that into context, kind of like we're doing here. I was like, so because on other planets, there are AIs, artificial forms of artificial intelligence, that do have bits of sentience. They're being developed in that way to be able to read subtle energies, which is so cool. But that's not happening here in this reality. But that is a truth that's happening in other realities, another dimension, and on other planets, which I think is so cool. But my question was, well, then if we have sentient AIs, what happens to spiritual healers? Because I feel like spiritual healers are like just on the rise, where people are just starting to realize like the true form of like health and wholeness that can be achieved by working with someone who has access to the full picture of who you are and to reading these subtle energies. But what happens if AI then steps into that realm? And the answer is that it's really not a concern at this point, because most people right now in our world don't even realize that we have subtle energies. And there's a ton of information to be known about that. And there's a ton of information within the consciousness of the planet, within the consciousness of the people, within their own consciousness. So we're so far away with that, it wouldn't even be in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm not out of a job already before it's even really started.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, I feel like people are just becoming comfortable with the idea that spiritual healer as an occupation and going to see one You know, people are just in the same way where I feel like, you know, the things that spiritual healers have to tell people, people are starting to finally be ready to want to know.
Yeah, and I actually see that people being willing to listen to AI for their own personal like benefit is a good sign, because if you're willing to listen to a robot, are you not willing to listen to someone who's dedicated their life to other people's health and happiness and in an alternative form? Is asking ChatGPT to resolve a problem for you as enriching as putting the work in and truly developing and evolving and getting uncomfortable and deepening your own spiritual connection to all that is, your own connection to infinite wisdom. I mean, ChatGPT can give you the physical and science-based answer, much like doctors, as where we have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body and energetic body. So let's say that's 4 bodies. They can answer about 1 from the science that we know about. They can answer things about our physical body backed up by science, just like doctors. But what about the non-physical meaning of an issue, the metaphysical meaning of an issue? And this is where whole person health is coming into play, of we're realizing we are so much more than just what our body is saying. And so we need to see people who are trained in the metaphysical aspects of our health and wholeness. And ChatGPT is kind of just like it's kind of like, you know, I think Doc in a Box, that came out, like, I feel like during COVID, became very popular.
Doc in a Box.
Yeah.
This sounds like a COVID themed like Jack in the Box for kids.
Yeah,
like
it was like, I think that's what it's called. Like you could go and see a doctor virtually, and they started calling it Doc in a Box or something like that.
That's hilarious.
But I kind of see like ChatGPT as something very similar. Like it's just, it has a means, it has like a beginning and an end. Like a doctor, most doctors have a beginning and an end. Like they stay within the guidelines of what they've learned, which is reinforced by science, what we can prove. As where that's great and it's needed. I'm not knocking that at all, but ChatGPT falls into the same category versus being able to read the subtle energies, understand the health of your soul and your spirit, understand the lives that came before and the lives that are to come after, like the bigger picture of who you are. Because all of that's also related to the health issues that you have. Just putting this into more context.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, it's like you can get the bigger picture. Why wouldn't you?
Your answer to that will determine which path you're going down.
I feel like I see with ChatGPT a lot of people, when they use it in a therapy kind of way, they get caught in that analysis paralysis.
Whenever you find yourself analyzing, you are in your logical brain, and your logical brain is limited. It's meant to be logical. It's meant to stay within those guidelines, you know. But when you are relying on your intuition for guidance, it's just a knowing. You just know. You're like, I don't have to think about it. I just have this feeling about it, and that is closer to the truth than what through the logical brain exists. It's almost like a pair of goggles that contribute to our ability to participate in this human earthly reality. It's like when we're in spirit world and we drop down, we're like, well, we can't just be a spirit in earth. There are filters. We need a body. We need an ego. We need like a logical mind. We need consciousness. All of these things. They're limited in their own right, but together they allow us to have this experience here on this school. But your intuition is connected. It's like a sibling of your spirit. Like is like a cool way to look at it. And so if you can learn to listen to your intuition instead of the logic mind, where the logic mind works with ChatGPT and your intuition works with the subtle energies and like the infinite connection to wisdom in the universe, you'll be closer to the truth and closer to the root cause.
So do you feel like ChatGPT is actively taking away from people's intuition?
No, I feel like it's just a shiny new object, like anything else, like virtual reality. You know, it's cool. It just is cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not knocking it. I use it too. It's helpful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and while it clearly does have potential to have sentience, I suppose. We're not there, and we're not close to being there. No one, it doesn't seem like anyone right now, when I like scan the world, anyone is building AI with that intention.
Mhm.
You know, and it would take, I think, a long time before we got there.
That would be a complex algorithm.
So I just have discernment, you know, when you look at it, and remember that it really doesn't know who you are, even though it seems to.
Even if it does analyze you, it only analyzes what you've given it, which can be incredibly biased.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's fun. So go play, use it, have it part of your life. Just understand what it actually means when we say ChatGPT has consciousness. So you can see that raising your consciousness is a serious endeavor, and it's very important. Mm-hmm. So having it's all frequency, it's all energy. So when you can raise your consciousness, you won't be so disillusioned by ChatGPT. That grain of salt you'll need to apply, you'll just have.
When you say raising your consciousness, because we were talking about consciousness as the thread between awareness and a bucket of knowledge.
Yes.
So when you say raising your consciousness, how can we put it in the context of that thread?
So that's why this is so nuanced, because you can have an elevated consciousness, or you can have a lower consciousness. Like, there's a whole range and scale of levels of consciousness. So that's why I started with raising your consciousness is a serious endeavor, because it's going to change your life. It's going to change your ability to have access to that infinite wisdom, to manifest, to not be disillusioned, not fall prey to like lies and things like that. When you live in a higher frequency, your consciousness is elevated, which means you can tap into more information from the universe and truths about yourself. When you are in a lower consciousness, so like a simple example is when you are ungrateful, when you have negative self-talk, when you eat toxic foods, wear toxic clothing, that all lowers your energy and can lower your consciousness. Now, when you are grateful and you are happy, aligned, authentic, have a strong belief system, are open-minded, you know, non-judgment, all of those things raise your consciousness. So your ability to easily adapt new perspectives, to obtain those higher truths, and then like alchemize them into your own life is much higher. And monkeys do this too. So I want to give a quick example. Monkeys can use tools to open nuts. Some monkeys can and some monkeys can't. When a monkey learns to use a tool to open a nut, they have joined the other monkeys who know how to open nuts with tools in another consciousness, in a higher consciousness. Something as simple as that is a higher consciousness. You're learning something new. You're interacting with the world in a new way. This also happens, this is like, there are these peculiar moments when inventors from around the world start creating the same thing. They've tapped into the same consciousness. That inspiration, those ideas come from a certain consciousness. There's so much to dive into here.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, for the logical brain, like the way we've connected the thread of awareness and a bucket of knowledge, if you're living at a higher consciousness, you're being more aware and accessing a bigger bucket of knowledge within you. Whereas a lower bucket of knowledge, a lower awareness, will lead to choices around toxic foods and toxic clothing and these things where it's like you are choosing to purposely not access knowledge and purposely not be aware. For example, like the type of food that you get, mass-produced meats, you're choosing to not be aware of where that meat comes from and the quality that comes from that.
That would be a lower consciousness. You're not really tuned into the bigger picture and the subtle energies and the impact. Like you're missing that holistic view, or maybe you have it, but you're not willing to look at it. You're not willing to have the empathy to make changes for the greater good, those kinds of things. All the things that you're describing are elements of a sentient being. We have the ability to interact with our environment with kind of like infinity, with no bounds. As where then we look at the consciousness that exists within AI, it's way down here. It's way down here. It's like this tiny little sliver of information when literally we have access to infinity. So just remember that when you're working with AI. So yes, AI has consciousness, but it's a little sliver. Humans, as sentient beings, access to consciousness could be infinity.
Yeah, we can open our minds to like infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like ChatGPT is just one bucket.
Yes. Which then shows when you're looking to work with a spiritual healer, you want someone who has elevated consciousness. You want someone who has a clean, honest lifestyle of integrity, because the cleaner the individual, the higher the frequency of the individual, the more clear of an answer they're going to get for you when they are poking around in infinity. So you ask the question's the container, the information comes down, the higher frequency of the individual then interpreting the information, the closer to truth that you're going to receive.
I see.
I know, that's a whole other.
No, that makes sense, because you are thinking of you are coming from a higher consciousness. You are making choices for yourself that are of a more open mind. You are considering every part of what goes into making your clothes, every part of what goes into the food you eat, what you surround yourself in. It is
routine, your connection to nature. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You are what you consume in the as grand a sense as you can possibly.
Yeah, and your ability to non-judge and see everyone as equal and there's no right or wrong and all of those things.
Yeah.
As where, again, like that's dynamic, and AI, it has a form, it has boundaries, as where we are boundless sentient beings. So yes, AI is cool, but sentient beings and consciousness that we have access to is much cooler.
Yeah.